All right, guys, so in the last one, I labeled page 120 for us, but we never did it. So I want to look at that with you today. So part of the quadratic formula over here can actually be super helpful to solve first so that I know if I need to keep going or not. Because the thing is, sometimes my quadratic does not even have a solution. And so the part that will tell me is the part underneath the square root. So that little formula underneath the square root actually has its own name. It's called the discriminant. Okay, so the discriminant is just the equation b squared minus 4ac. And if you kind of think about the word discriminate, you can sort of see how maybe this makes sense. So like when I think discriminate, I mean like we are chunking people up into categories that maybe they don't deserve to be chunked up into. But that's kind of what our discriminant does too. When I do the discriminant, when I do this little formula here, one of three things will happen. You will either get a positive number as your answer, a negative number as your answer, or just 0. And because the discriminant is underneath your square root, that will tell you what type of solutions you have and how many you have. So if it is a positive number, that tells me that I have 2 solutions, because like you're going to add it to something and subtract it from something. So you'll get 2 different answers. If my discriminant is 0, then that means I have 1 solution, because I'm taking 0 and adding it to a number and subtracting it from a number, but it was nothing. So like it didn't change that number. So that was kind of just 1 solution. And then if I do get a negative number, that tells me that I have 0 solutions. And again, the reason being is because if I'm going to try to square root a negative number, that's just not allowed. And we kind of saw that here when we were doing our quadratic formula. Okay, so these are just each fancy ways to say just that. If I say that b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, then I'm saying that it is a positive number. I will then get 2 real solutions. So if we are positive, gosh, it got cut off. Then I have 2 solutions. So let's try that first. So if we open this up, we have our quadratic that is almost in standard form, but I need for it to be equal to 0. So we're going to subtract that 4 over, and then just put it in order. So 12x squared plus 5x minus 4 equals 0. And then we'll identify our a, b, and c. So a is 12, b is 5, and c is negative 4. And you can see that if I don't make it equal to 0 like I'm supposed to, then I will get the wrong c value, because I may have taken it as 4, but it really needs to be negative 4. Okay? So no matter what, if I'm going to do the quadratic formula or not, I need to find the discriminant, so I might as well just find that first, because if I find that it's a negative number, then why even continue? So let's plug this all in. We'll have 5 squared minus 4 times a, which is 12, times c, which is negative 4. Okay, so we have to do the exponent first. 5 squared is 25. And when I multiply over here, if I think about positive and negatives first, we're going to end up with a positive overall. And then I have 4 times 12 times 4, which is like 16 times 12, which is like real big. I got a calculator for that, sorry. 16 times 12. 192. And so then I can add these up now. So 192 plus 25 is 217. So because it is a positive number, this tells me that I have 2 solutions, or two x-intercepts, which means that I should go find them. So if we think about finding the solutions now by using the quadratic formula, that was our x equals negative b, so negative 5, plus or minus the square root of our discriminant, which I already found, was 2/17, all over 2 times a, so 2 times 12. So that actually makes it a little bit easier because I already found the discriminant. And so now I want to try to take the square root of 2/17, and I kind of don't think that you can. I'm going to just double check on my calculator here. So if it would unlock, oh my word, calculator issues. So on an iPhone, you can actually take a square root if this wants to cooperate. If I type in 2/17, there's actually a square root button right here. So after I type in the 2/17, if I hit square root, yeah, that's a real yucky decimal. So at this point, we can go one of two ways. We can either give an approximate answer, or we can give the exact one. So Missouri always liked exact, and since I couldn't take the square root of this, I'm going to leave my final answer as negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 2/17 all over 24. Okay, that is the exact answer. And there are two of them because one is when I add it and the other is when I subtract it. If I want to get an approximate one, we would do the decimal. So I would have negative 5 plus or minus that boy, which you really have to make a choice, like where are you going to cut it off? So we'll go to the nearest tens. So 10th place is 1 past, but I really need to look at 2 past so that I can see if I should round up or not. And because it's a 3, I should not. So we're going to do plus or minus 14.7 all over the 24. Okay. So if we then think about what our two approximate answers would be, one of them will be negative 5 plus 14.7 over 24, which will equal something. And then the other one will be negative 5 minus the 14.7 over 24, which will equal something else. And I kind of run out of space here, but we can do it. Okay, so if I type this in now, a negative 5 and a 14.7, I can kind of just do it in the other order. I'm going to do 14.7 minus 5 because it's a negative. So 9.7, and then I need to divide the 24. Ew. So we're going tens place, so this is 0.4 is one of my answers. Then the other one is negative 5 and negative 14. So I'm really just going to add them up. So like 5 plus 14.7 and then make it negative. So negative 19.7 then divided by 24 will be a negative 0.8 overall. Now here's the crazy thing that I want to show you real quick. So I'm going to pop up a Desmos here. Okay, so if I go to graphing calculator and then I type this standard form equation in that I started with, which was y equals 12x squared plus 5x minus the 4, because I had to bring that 4 over. If I look at my x-intercepts now, we should get one that was at negative 0.8. That's pretty close. And then the other one that was at 0.4, which is pretty close. So the reason that we don't get all the decimals there is because I had to chop a whole bunch off when I was taking that square root. So kind of yuck. Okay, sorry that was smushed in there at the end. Let's try another. So if I'm doing the discriminant and I find that b squared minus 4ac is exactly 0, wouldn't it be so nice if that just meant that there are 0 answers? But that actually means that I have one solution, and I guess kind of the way we can remember is that 1 has an O in it, and like 0 is kind of O. I don't know. Maybe that's the way to remember. Although then it all falls apart because no has an O in it too. Oh my God, don't think about it. So let's try another one like this. Alrighty, so looking at this one here, this is not equal to 0, so we need to add the 16. And so we have x squared minus 8x plus 16 equals 0. Now that I'm equal to 0 and in standard form, we can find our a, b, c. So a is 1, b is negative 8, and c is 16. And then we can go find our discriminant. And again, the discriminant is helpful. It saves me steps when I go to do the quadratic formula later, if I even need to, okay? So if we have solutions, we need to. But if I don't have solutions, then I can just be done. So we'll do b squared, which is negative 8 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 16. Okay, so we have to do our exponent first, and negative 8 squared is 64, always positive when I square it. And then over here, when I multiply and I think about the positive negative situation, it's going to be minus or negative overall. And then the 1 sort of doesn't matter, so we're really just doing 4 times 16, which is 64. And then 64 minus 64 is 0. So because my discriminant is 0, that means I have 1 solution. But since I do, I should go find it. So find the solution by using our quadratic formula. Oh, look at that, and it's right there. So we'll do x equals negative b, which double negative will make it a positive, so really positive 8, plus or minus the square root of the discriminant, which I just got was 0, all over 2 times a, where a was 1. And so when I simplify this, 8 plus or minus the square root of 0 is just 0, all over 2 times 1, which is just 2. And because I was able to take the square root, I can fully find my 2 answers here. We'll have 8 plus 0 over 2, and then 8 minus 0 over 2. And 8 plus 0 is still just 8 over 2, which is 4. And like 8 minus 0 is just 8 over 2, which is just 4. So they're kind of, I mean, that's one answer of 4. So again, to tie it all back together, if I come back to this Desmos right here, and I think about typing that equation in, so y equals x squared minus 8x plus 16, you can see that it is just touching that x-axis one time right at 4. And so last but not least, the only other thing that could happen is that when I'm doing the discriminant b squared minus 4ac, we end up with a number less than 0, which is just like a low-key negative number. And if it's negative, that means I have no solution. And so there's no point in continuing to find the rest of the quadratic formula. So if we open this up and try it out, I have to be in standard form and equal to 0. So I have to add that 4 over. And it's not like terms with anybody, so we're just going to write this all out. So 2x squared plus 3x plus 4 equals 0. And then I can find my a, b, and c. So a is 2, b is 3, c is 4. And so then we'll plug them all in. So b squared is going to be 3 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is 4. Then we got to do our exponent first. So 3 squared is 9. When I consider the positive and negative situation, it's still going to be a minus sign. And then 4 times 2 times 4 is like 16 times 2 or 8 times 4, however you want to think about it, which is 32. And then when I subtract, I'm definitely going to get a negative number here. Like 9 minus 32 is negative something. 23. Yeah, negative 23. But it kind of doesn't matter because if it's a negative number, that means I have no solution. And so I wouldn't then go do the rest of my quadratic formula because why? Like this just is not going to have any solutions at all. So again, going back to our Desmos one last time here, guys. If we think about typing this equation in standard form, So y equals 2x squared plus 3x plus 4. If we take a look at that one, you can see it's not going to touch your x-axis at all. It is a pointing up parabola above the x-intercept, so it's not going to have any x solutions. So why are there no real solutions? It doesn't cross the x-axis. And if you want to make a little sketch to remind yourself, it was like right there. So it was above it and going up. Alrighty, hopefully that helps a little bit with the quadratic formula too. And I'll see you on the next one.